Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's a new week, and that means yet another Cities Skylines 2 feature highlight video. If you've been keeping up, you'll know this week's video is about zoning and signature buildings. This is a topic I have certainly been looking forward to. Since the trailer and seeing all those different icons for residential, I've been eagerly awaiting this dev diary, as well as for clarification of what exactly signature buildings are. Clearly they're meant to replace unique buildings, but as I've changed the name, I've been assuming there's something different about them, and today we finally found out what. Now, along with this video, I also want to talk about something I'm seeing a lot of concern and chatter about online surrounding Cities Skylines 2. And that is the difficulty of the game. Starting at least since last week's dev diary on public and cargo transportation, and kind of just the whole concept of having to create all of your own transport lines, including cargo lines, I've seen lots of people concerned that Cities Skylines 2 will be a lot more difficult than CS1. And I'm making this video several hours after the diary went live, and I've seen a lot of people talking about the apparent difficulty increases as a result of some of the information in this week's dev diary. And today, I'm here to ease everyone's mind and tell you exactly why I don't think any of us have anything to worry about. And let me just preface this by saying I am no means an expert on this game. Not Cities 2, obviously, as I have not played it, and not in Cities 1. I myself have only been playing for about a year and a half, and there's still things about the game and its mechanics that I don't understand. But that hasn't stopped me from being able to enjoy the game, nor to create large, thriving cities. And if I'm not worried about Cities Skylines 2 being harder, then neither should you. And to help ease your mind, I first want to go through the latest dev diary and talk about what's familiar. With so much new information coming out and so many exciting new features, I think a lot of people, myself included at times, have felt a bit overwhelmed. But they're not reinventing the wheel here. They're taking what we know and love best about Cities Skylines 1 and making it better, that's all. So for starters, what's familiar? Well, first, the zoning types and tools are very, very familiar. Let's take a look.
Zoning lets you decide where people live and work. You create these residential, commercial, and industrial zones with zoning tools. They work in a couple of different ways. Click and drag over cells on the map to zone large rectangular areas. Zone all adjacent cells with one click. Or get granular, zoning a neighborhood cell by cell.
Okay. So as the video states, the types of zones are essentially the same as in Cities 1. We have residential, commercial, industrial, and office. And in Cities 1, while industrial and office were separated and they're combined in Cities 2, it's still the same industries, or it's still the same zoning types. They're just a little bit clearer about which one you want and need, right? And so for me, that just seems to make things easier, not more difficult. Now I know for sure if I need office or industrial. And as you have noticed, the tools are exactly the same as they are in CS1. You can fill an entire area by clicking and drawing out a large rectangle area, or you can just fill the adjacent tiles with the fill button, or you can go tile by tile, which I don't really see a point for, but you can do it if you want to. So getting used to that won't be a problem at all. If we continue the video for just a really quick second. Okay, so this screen goes by super duper fast in the video, so I had to be on it to pause it. But if we continue a little bit longer to here, we see some other familiar features. You know, the screen is it's just clearer. It's just better, a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more modern, and it just looks a lot nicer. There are a few things new here, at least one new thing here, and I'll get to that later, but I just want to point out some stuff that's familiar. So up here we have, like, if you log into your Paradox account, receive the medieval castle for free. So just like in CS1, if you have a Paradox Interactive account, you can link it to your game and have access to an exclusive building. In Cities 1, you had the Paradox Plaza, and here we have the medieval castle, which I think is a massive improvement. Definitely an upgrade in my opinion. Now, if we continue just a little bit further, we're greeted with a truly marvelous map selection page. Let me pause it here. And again, it's full of familiar features that will make us feel right at home. So, I mean, first of all, I just gotta take in the beauty of these maps, right? They're just These little previews are amazing. Anyway, on to the important stuff. So we have the same kind of stuff. You know, you get your picture. It has a little explanation, a little blurb about the map. It tells you the theme, the climate, the latitude, like where it's at. And the buildable area is familiar, outside connections are familiar, and natural resources. And again, just like the last screen, this screen just looks a lot more clearer, a lot more modern, and just better to look at. And again, I really just can't get over these map previews. They're so beautiful. I cannot wait to get my hands on them. I can already see which map I want to use first. How about you? What map looks the best to you? Which one can't you wait to build on? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Next is a quick one, just pointing out the obvious. They're still low and high densities. We'll get to the differences between them in a little bit. But what I would like to talk about next is signature buildings, which are taking the place of unique buildings in CS1. But they're relatively similar in concept. So if we go ahead and take a look at them, down here, about here.
Your dreams without signature buildings. These are unique residential, commercial, industrial, and office buildings that you unlock as your city expands. They're free to build.
Okay, so minus that last part, everything is pretty similar and makes sense as far as how Cities 1 worked. They're special buildings that you can unlock through progression as your city grows, and they each provide your cities with certain perks. Just like in CS1, only one of each signature building can be placed in a city, and it can be moved around just as freely. And the last point I want to talk about for familiarity is industrial specialization. If we go back a little bit through the video, we've seen it a few times already, but as of today, we have official confirmation as to what this last icon means. And we even get to see it in action a little bit with the farming area. But in a Q&A post on their Instagram page, it was confirmed that the last icon is for industry specialization. Which, from this video, and both this screen in here, and again, like I said, in the farming one, it looks to be similar to the Industries DLC from Cities 1, which is also super exciting. It's nice to see that so many aspects of DLCs are included in the base game for Cities 2. Yeah, I know there's some stuff missing, but I have faith we'll get everything we have now, and then some in the future. Now let's talk about what's different. If we go back to the beginning of the video, about here, we'll see this info view in the top left corner, right? Okay. Now what's new here is this layer, this metric called suitability, which changes the color of the streets. And so we can see that this area is bad, right? Badly suitable for the kind of residential zone we have clicked. So each of the new zone types has this aspect highlighted in their info view when you go to zone or place that zone type. But here, we're specifically looking at how suitable this area is for specifically low-density residential. So that's what we have clicked here. So my guess is that this area isn't suitable for low-density housing, just because it's clearly a downtown city center vibe. Not exactly the best place for smaller single-family residences. Okay. Next, I want to talk about the start screen again, where I said before that there was some new stuff, but it's not really related to gameplay, but it's still notable. Really, it's just this spot here, this Paradox Mods. Now, I don't know exactly what that means quite yet, whether that's just the typical base game mods or of like unlimited money and unlock everything, or something else entirely. That we're still going to have to wait to see on. And then if we continue ahead again into this map area, we see some more familiar looking stuff. We have all this stuff here down on the right. But what is new is that if we check out the outside connections here, we see electricity as well. So we have roads, train, boats, planes, and electricity. Which they did tell us in last week's dev diary that both water and electricity can be imported and exported from your city. Then on the left, we have some options that can be edited. So we have the name here, that's normal. You can randomize it even, but some of this stuff can be changed. So A really cool feature coming is that we can actually change the theme of the map if we don't like the one it comes with. So, you know, this map specifically comes with the European theme, but we can change it to North American if we want to, which was something you needed a mod to do in CS1, and now it's integrated into the game from the start, which is great. Then you have the standard stuff again, with what side of the road your citizens drive on, and those unlock options, which, now that I'm seeing them here again, makes me curious what the Paradox mod thing is, because it's clearly not the unlimited money and unlock all, because that's right here. And then disasters, of course, which we were already aware that weather was coming in the base game. Exactly what kind of natural disasters are coming, we still don't really know. And to go along with the map themes and how those can be changed,
Now use zoning tools to mix it up. Go on, sprinkle a little North American flair into your European city. Or vice.
new in Cities 2 is that you can mix and match styles from the start. While it was sort of possible in CS1 with district styles from DLCs, you couldn't easily mix base game styles like European and American together in one city. And now you can, which will just make things so much easier, especially for vanilla players like myself. And so let's keep the video going until our next point. So before we get into the major stuff with the residential zones, I couldn't help but notice this little for sale sign out in front of these row houses. And it's been alluded to in different places by the Cities 2 folks that your citizens have a more in-depth life path and can move around your city. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, whether this mechanic existed at all in Cities 1, where your citizens would like move around from your city into one residential type to another. But some of the info coming out certainly seems to imply that this mechanic or feature is a lot more impactful in Cities 2. And I'm interested to see how it plays out. And I think this is one of those features that has people worried the game will be harder than Cities 1. Again, I'm not worried. Now onto the new residential types. So if we go back a bit, we can see each zone type listed for residential. Okay, so first we have low density housing. Then we have medium density row housing. Then medium density housing. Then we have mixed housing, low rent housing, and high density housing. All in all, while there are some new zone types, it's essentially the same as in Cities 1, but we just have more control over exactly what type of building we can get. We won't necessarily have to play whack-a-mole or pay particularly close attention to our buildings as they level up to get the desired building. If we want a medium density apartment home, we can just use that option, instead of making a building historical, for example, just because it looks medium density. We have that control now. I think this is another one of those features that has people worried about the difficulty with just there being so many new options and each of them having their own separate demands and suitable places to be built. Like, trying to figure out where to place what and when seems a little bit more involved than in Cities 1, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I don't think in the long run it'll be bad. I think it'll be easier. I think it'll be easier rather than harder. I think it'll just make more sense. Going a bit further into the video, we come to this info view. Again, we see the suitability metric here that shows like which roads are suitable for that type of zoning. But below it, we see customers. And it shows that the terrain around the area has a different color based on how many customers are nearby for that business to serve, or as well as like for the people to visit their stores, like how many people are there to come visit. This is new, and that we get to see more clearly what areas need, or more importantly, want commercial zones nearby. So, for example, we see on the left that the terrain is green, indicating there are more customers in that area that want commercial zones, or there's more customers to visit those commercial zones. And then on the right, we see that it's more yellow. And this just kind of makes sense if we look at the picture, right? Because on the left, we have like apartments, and on the right, we have clearly single-family homes. So obviously there's more customers over here. There's more people in these buildings than there is over here. And again, I think that this will just add to the ease of the game rather than making it more difficult. It sounds more involved. It sounds like you're going to have to pay a little bit more attention to it, but I don't think that necessarily means that it's going to be harder. We're going to have to, again, be careful about placing commercial zones. We won't be able to just kind of throw them anywhere, but we'll have a lot more insight as to where those zones want or need to be. And then lastly in the video, If we go back to signature buildings, we can talk about what's new there. So let's just give it a listen.
Signature buildings. These are unique residential, commercial, industrial, and office buildings that you unlock as your city expands. They're free to build, and you can plop them anywhere. Plop. It's Cities Skylines lingo. Go on, say it. Plop. What?
Okay, I just thought that part was funny. But, so first, these buildings are now free to place, which is interesting. I'm not sure why that's the case, but I think I can work with it. The unique buildings in Cities 1 were pretty expensive, and now they'll be free. And also, they just look so much nicer now. Now they look like they properly fit into the city. Some of the uniques in Cities 1 were just odd, to say the least. I think this makes them easier to implement in your cities, which makes it easier to achieve the benefits that come with it. It kind of seems as if the uniques and monuments are a little bit combined almost in this one, instead of just being essentially tourist attractions. They provide benefits to your city, like increased efficiency of education, which was something that monuments did before in Cities 1. And then that's it for the video portion of today's Dev Diary. Now I'd like to take a look at the blog post. This is where I think a lot of the information is that is worrying some people. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will provide a link in the description below should you want to read through the whole thing yourself. It's definitely worth a read. It's got a ton of information. The video is kind of an overview, and this really explains like how those mechanics really work. But so in summary, the blog post again just goes into more detail about how those mechanics work, and I'll admit that it seems a lot more intricate than in Cities 1. If we look here at the zone types here, I think it's in this paragraph. It talks about land value and how high land value can actually like negatively impact your city. For example, increasing land value also affects smaller buildings more as it affects the size of the rent in general. In that, it says that it can impact some of your citizens by making the rent go up. And since rent is paid in single-family homes by a smaller number of people, if the rent goes up too high, those people may need to find more suitable housing that fits in their budgets. And again, while this sounds almost daunting and like it may be difficult to find that balance between, well, you obviously want to have high land value so that your citizens are happy and that you make a lot of money. I do believe it won't be as difficult as it may seem. I think everything is just very new and it's a lot of information to take in, but most of it just makes sense too. Like if you have an area with high land value, lots of parks, services, cool places to eat and drink, it tends to be a more populated area. Like in my city, for example, it's basically full of apartments and high-rise buildings. And the homes that are in my area go for millions. And I'm talking like small homes, just, 2-3 bedroom homes of like a normal size. Millions, which isn't great for like a typical family, right? But more affordable single-family houses do exist outside of the city that are larger, that can fit, families a little bit better and have yards. And they're right where you would expect them to be. They're not in the middle of the city center. Like, I live in the middle of a pretty urban zone, and everything around me is basically an apartment. And I imagine in-game, it works as a great way to naturally develop and expand parts of your cities and grow them in a realistic way. So as you grow up the city and increase the land value, people are like, oh, we need more space for more people. There's so many people coming to visit. There's so many people that want to enjoy this space. We need high-rise apartments, etc. And then further down, it talks about taxes. Okay, here we are. And from reading this, adjusting taxes for the different education levels, as well as the various goods produced and sold in a city, can have a great effect on local demand. Taxes can be used to favor different goods and products manufacturing in the city, or simply give a helping hand to fledgling industries. So it sounds like taxes will be a more fleshed out mechanic in cities too. No more just setting everything at 12% and letting it go. Which, while that was physically easy in Cities 1, it didn't make a whole lot of sense and it wasn't very realistic. So sure, while it might not be as easy as like the click of a button, I think the design seems very intuitive. And it seems as though you'll be able to have a greater control, like a greater sense of control over the growth of your city as your choices for tax rates will actually affect what grows or what your citizens want and need. And in this info view here, you can actually see explicitly written out what benefits and drawbacks each of your zones will have on your city. And I think that just takes out a lot of the guesswork. Like, we can see that medium density residential will increase happiness, will increase your tax income, will increase students. It will lessen the availability of jobs, and it will decrease the number of unoccupied buildings. And then the same thing with like high density residential, and then you have, commercial demand and what exactly that will do for your city, and same with industrial. You no longer have to do a lot of guessing and just plopping things in and just waiting and hoping things will grow in. It'll tell you exactly what your city needs for the kind of growth that you want. And again, about land value, a little bit further down, it talks about it. And it states specifically that land value is more involved than just plopping down a bunch of services. It's not going to do the same thing that it does in Cities 1, which, again, it sounds more difficult, like we can't just plop 5 fire stations in and call it a day. But I think that's better, because that doesn't really make sense anyway. All in all, it just seems as though we will have to be more intentional in our cities and pay attention more to what we're placing and where. But again, I really don't think that that's a bad thing. And I don't think that it will make playing more difficult. As I said before, I think it'll just be more intuitive. I think it'll make more sense. We won't have to do as much guessing about what might make citizens more happy, and we'll know more exactly what they want, and that plopping down a dog park won't be the solution to every problem anymore. And I think it'll just give us more natural and organic looking developments throughout our city. However, of course, we will have to wait for more information to know for sure. But if you were worried Cities 2 would be more difficult, I hope I've eased your mind a little bit, that we're getting a lot of familiar things to go along with the new features, and that even noobs like myself have a chance at creating beautiful, thriving cities. If you enjoyed this video, a like below would be greatly appreciated. And if you're looking forward to more coverage of Cities Skylines 2 news, go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, covering the dev diaries every week, as well as some classic vanilla Cities Skylines 1 content. And while you're at it, let me know below what you think of Cities Skylines 2 so far. Are you worried? Do you think it's going to be more difficult? Do you think it'll be easier? Do you think it's not really going to change all that much? Let me know in the comments. I would really, really love to hear your thoughts. I'm so curious as to what other people think about the game. I'm super excited about it, and I would love to hear what other people's worries and excitements are. But other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching.